But we have some interesting stories to tell. So thank you all for joining. My name is Lucy Bosley. I run a niche consultancy group after many, many moons in-house at Microsoft, living and breathing this stuff myself. Couldn't be happier to be here with these fantastic storytellers right here. I'm going to have them each tell us a little bit about who they are and what they do, and then we'll get into some hot takes of GC priorities. We'll start over here.
Good afternoon. I'm Christopher Chan. I'm the General Counsel of JLL Technologies. JLL, if you don't know, is a Fortune 200 commercial real estate group. I'm in charge of the data, AI, IP, and venture capital that we have at JLL. We have about 110,000 employees, and we are very far along in our AI journey, so I wanted to be able to share some of that with what we're having here. Prior to that, I was the General Counsel for Asia Pacific and lived in Singapore for a decade, and happy to be back in the US right now.
Fantastic.
Hello, everyone. I am Laura Jedernay, Legal Operations and Administration Director at Delta Airlines. You may have heard of them. Anyway, I'm glad to be here today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do outside of Clock. You all know I'm the chair of the Clock Board of Directors. But thank you. But I want to share some of the things I do as a legal ops, head of legal ops at Delta Airlines.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Matthews. I am the Chief Legal Officer and Chief Operating Officer at Augment Markets. We are a trading platform that deals in private company shares. We have a broker-dealer, an ATS, alternative trading system, and a registered investment advisor. So we're heavily regulated, small firm, but so I'll be taking Chris's opposite side in terms of being sort of the small firm version of this. And hopefully gives some of my color and information of what I've learned over this. Laura did tell me to tell you that because she works for Delta, if you need the exits, they're just like, and they may be behind you. So.
Fantastic. Steve, thank you for that PSA. And just for that, we're going to start with you. The first question is going to Steve. Here's what we want to know. What's real on the ground with AI today in your department? What are you doing? What is working? What have you learned?
Yeah, so I would say we're more on the beginning sort of scale of this. So we're not as advanced as a lot of firms. We're a small firm. There's a lot of pressure initially as to is the spend worth it for AI tools and other tools that can help the legal and compliance teams. We are at the point of having a vendor now, and we utilize, in the vast majority of cases, we utilize AI tools to help us craft maybe letters or documents that we haven't initially done before, such as most recently we did a demand letter for an outstanding debt. One of our team, we'd never drafted one before, one of our team pulled an example out very quickly. Also, we do have to do various document analysis. So sometimes we will get subscription documents from fund administrators and others which are 150 pages long, and they're usually very standard, but we quite often now use AI to at least give it a first cast, review quickly, give us some pointers as to what we need to look at, and then the legal team will go back in. So from a legal ops point of view, that kind of assistance bringing highlights to the attorneys, giving priorities to the attorneys to speed up timeline is critically important.
I'm going to ask Laura, from your perspective. So we've heard, of course, a very interested and hands-on GC that is embracing AI. As a legal operations leader, what are you doing with AI, and how are you working with your GC and your leadership team to really implement it and make it real?
Okay, we're not quite at the beginning stages. We rolled out Copilot 365. It's the whole suite. We did that for the External Affairs Group, which is the groups that fall under my GC. There are about 5 different divisions, about 300 people. So we rolled out Copilot. We all started using it, very happily using it. And then we thought, a lot of people were skeptical, did not want to use it. And so we said, how can we convince them to do so? So each month we have a GC department meeting. And what I did was for the 4 or 5 practice group leaders who were experimenting with Copilot, I had them share their experience, their use cases during that meeting. And after that, we got more engagement. In addition to that, we created a database in SharePoint where the entire group of 300 people can then start to put in their use cases and tell us what the use case was, what it solved for, how much time do you think you saved, and overall, how much money did you save? So we're tracking that, and people are using it now to leverage their own use cases, and it's been extraordinary. In addition to that, in addition to Copilot, we are in the middle of a horse race. We selected 3 AI vendors, and you all know them, the main ones that are out there. One we had to exclude because they didn't have the SSO multi-factor needs that our Delta IT requires. So make sure if you're looking at any tools, you are the very first thing you're going to do is engage your IT team, because you'll do all the work and then you'll realize you can't do it. So engage them. But we're going through this horse race. We have asked each vendor to give us 1 month to pilot it, and then we'll select the vendor at the end of the 1 month. So that's where we are.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to switch back to the GCCLO level of focus on AI, and tell us a little bit about then from your perspective. What are the mandates? What are the goals you've set for the department when it comes to automation?
Sure. I should probably just say what we have at our company, just to kind of round that out a little bit. JLL rolled out its AI wrapper 3 years ago, and we use over 6 different LLMs on them. So in the US, you can use Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude, and you can select for the different ones that you want to use. In Asia, we use DeepSeek, Alibaba, and Baidu. So we've been having our employees, 110,000 people, using these for the past 3 years, learning how to prompt and develop. So we're quite far along in the journey. So other tools that we have developed a Teams agent that goes through our Outlook, our Teams messages, our calendars, and it acts like as a daily agent that you can talk about finding files and SharePoints on a regular basis. This is just for anybody in the company to use. And then at the enterprise level, for our super users, we have enterprise Claude for them to use if they need to. We're in the process of deciding how many people get to use it, what features we want to enable for everyone, because I think some of the basic features are really good. And I know not everyone here wants to hear this, but there are many great vendors in the pool here. But for my company, we decided to go with an enterprise solution of one of the bigger players. And the reason being is because I need my legal team and the rest of the people to understand how does our business use AI on a really deep level, and then use those tools. Also for an in-house team, some of those features at these vendors apply a lot more to law firms than in-house legal departments to a certain degree. The other factor is those big 3 companies are developing so quickly with such great budgets that it's hard for people to keep up. So as I mentioned, 3 years ago, we launched a wrapper. We started developing more and more features, adding images, adding other things to do, adding transcription. We just couldn't keep up with that, even though we invested millions, because they were investing hundreds of millions. So that's why we had to switch to an enterprise solution for some of the higher users, but keeping the base level stuff for different users. So the basic use case is have everyone use it as a partner to make them more efficient, obviously. We're now at the stage of building actual agents to do automated tasks, streamline functions, and move at that level. And that's a very different skill set that you need for your lawyers and legal operations people. So I know some of my legal operations people for JLL are in the room here. If you find them, you can talk to them about what's going on in that sense. But it's a very different journey. We've had to do this at an enterprise level, as I mentioned. So corporate procurement, corporate tech, and working together to build these things versus just trying to do something for legal. But this is also because we're a very big company. You know, we operate in every single country, almost every single country in the world, which means that we have a lot different requirements from a governance and compliance perspective. So priorities we have, my number 1 priority with our chief legal officer is make sure everyone uses it and uses it responsibly and uses it efficiently. One thing people don't really understand right now is that every time you use it, there's a cost to it. You use tokens, and there are ways to prompt that use less tokens. There's models that are more efficient with token usage, and every year a new model is going to come out, or every 6 months a new model, and it's going to cost more and more tokens to use it. So a lot of people, when they factor in this cost efficiency and thinking about it, they actually don't think about what's the long-term cost. Sure, these agents will work 24/7 and not complain and stuff like that, but there is cost that you got to think about for operating that most people don't think about. So also making sure if you're a legal ops person, understand how does token utilization work. Like every word counts, and if you continue a conversation, that costs double because you're now charging all the other things into it. So just making sure you upskill yourself and your teams to understand how this works, I think is the next level for people to think about besides just using AI.
That's an incredibly important point. Very tactical, very operationally minded point that is great to hear from a GC for sure. I think those are things that a lot of us may overlook, and certainly the practitioners do. So I do want to get into one thing that I think is important, and when you are making that connection between operations goals and GC priorities, which of course should be perfectly aligned, there is one that I come across quite a bit in talking to GCs. They're finding themselves in a dual role of setting policy for the entire company around responsible usage and governance over AI. And at the same time, they have to be a top user and show and advocate how the legal department is using AI. That is a very tough needle to thread from what I'm hearing and in talking to some peers and counterparts. I'd love to hear your all thoughts on approaching governance and being a user at the same time, and maybe some of the lessons learned or progress you've made. Maybe if you don't mind, Chris, since you kind of touched on it, I'd love to start with you a little bit on governance.
Really important for governance. Many AI companies don't have the proper security measures, so you need to have some framework for how to think about it. And we have a 3-principle framework that we put out very early on because we've been doing it for a while. It's safety and security, making sure your data is secure. The second is ethical use, and the third is human-centered. And we've been relaying this message for the last 3 years and making sure people understand. But we update our responsible use guidelines every 3 months now, because new features are coming out and different use cases. And now we're going as a company, not only just using the AI, we're now trying to sell the AI solutions as services to other people and products to other people. So that also changes how we kind of adapt things. But if you read the news nowadays, people are moving so quickly with this and using every single tool they can figure out because many of them are extremely useful. But I would approach it very differently if you're at a big global company, because there's a tremendous risk of data loss. And that's the one thing we have to think about. So we made a pretty drastic decision last August where we basically blocked the ability to kind of go to a third-party AI website on the corporate appliances because we're having too many people just download them and use them. And we had a lot of data loss risk. And you can imagine the kind of uproar you get from 110,000 people saying, I can't go visit openai.com. Well, there's a reason, because that's one way to kind of stop it, educate them, and then slowly release it again after they've certified they've done some training. But I would say that data loss is a huge risk. The world that we live in right now there's a huge amount of cyber risk, geopolitical risk. If you're a big company, you are the targets of these things. So you also need to be aware of those types of things. And then the third is making sure you actually have enforcement of people who violate these rules. You can't be soft on that because it's so easy for somebody to say, well, you let me install it, so I used it, right? And so part of it is that rolling out the education, making sure they certify they do it, and then if somebody violates it, you have to have some kind of disciplinary regime in place. Otherwise, it becomes just talk.
Fascinating. Laura, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Everyone's using AI. Our business partners now have access to AI. They're all excited. Some of them think they may be lawyers. Maybe they can make decisions, legal decisions. They cannot do that. They can do that, but then they give up the privilege. So you need to make sure that your business partners are not trying to become lawyers. Lawyers still need to vet all of this stuff. And when they don't need to vet it, they'll let you know what it is they're not. But the governance piece is important. You got to have governance around it.
I would comment on that a little bit. Every business partner I meet for a legal issue has already asked AI some kind of preliminary questioning around it to have a more meaningful conversation with me. So I think everyone in the room, whether you're a lawyer or a legal ops person, has to appreciate that everybody's going to have their own AI they've already interacted with, and making sure that you're much more precise about your advice, and also that you've done your homework on these things. Because it's very easy to lose credibility but it's very easy to gain a lot of credibility when you can prove those things with additional judgment. And I think that's one thing that AI really, it's getting much better, but it doesn't have that judgment that experienced professionals have. So making sure you bring that to the table every time you interact is extremely important.
And That's another super important reality check. And I've heard GCs say things like, well, we don't let them ... We won't let them ... These are teenagers having a party in your basement. That is what's happening with AI. It's on their phones, at the business. It doesn't matter what they're not allowed to access on their corporate machines. So you have to kind of know that going in, and that's why that governance thread is so hard, and balance with encouraging responsible and ethical use, and governing effectively. I mean, that's the reality, and I think that's a super important point. They are using it. Left, right, center, everywhere, regardless of what the kind of enterprise has shut down. So, and maybe from a smaller group, Steve, thoughts on governance versus usage and together?
Yeah, look, I think from the smaller company point of view, we're at the stage of using AI to draft our governance policy. So we're really at the beginning of looking at what we need to do. So a lot of firms like mine, we have fintech, we've probably got, I would say, half of our employees are engineers, the rest are support or business operations. And so we have two use cases. Like the legal team that I run, we've got 8 individuals who do legal and compliance and risk, and we have AI usage for certain things like helping process documents, helping draft documents, etc. But our tech team really want it for using coding help. So, they have an issue with code, they throw it in ChatGPT or whatever, and they try and get assistance with the coding. And so we have a different strategy on governance for those particular use cases. Specifically, as soon as you start utilizing it for that kind of thing, what happens to our IP? Do we have comfort that it is our IP? Has it now borrowed IP from something else? Was it used in a training environment rather than another environment that would be more usable? What happens if this becomes the most successful thing ever and now we've got something that may be tainted? So we've got a lot of concerns around that and how we allow our teams to utilize it, but at the same time understand the risks involved and train them, basically. The other thing is, you can build as many software services and limitations on your corporate environment, but they have a second laptop on their desk, which is their home laptop, and they just do it on that anyway. So you've still got those risks. So a lot of our focus is more on training, like ethically, use this properly, use this for these reasons. We would expect these results if you don't put any of our own information into it, because that then may also get out. And so we're really trying to train our teams as to how best to use it. We don't have those risks so much on the legal side. Again, we are not putting confidential or proprietary information into these systems, or there's no risk of that. So it's a little bit different, so the training is slightly different in that case.
Sure.
The second question you asked was about how do you thread the needle about actually being an evangelist or using it a lot. I absolutely use it all the time, and I was one of the people that helped push it 3 years ago to kind of get it across the whole company. It's one thing to get to like a small team, but to get to 110,000 people, that's a lot. So you actually need a lot of executive buy-in. Our chief legal officer, saw that I had a tech background, asked me to help out with some of this stuff, but then we have certain evangelists within the company. You can see who the super users are, making sure you plug into them, get them empowered, get them to the airtime, and then keep reinforcing, use it in your daily life. I think it's really important. You won't just use it at work and be good at this stuff. Like, you have to embed this into how you think about things. And I got to know Lauren because I got to speak at Delta Airlines to teach them about how I was using AI, because I've been one of these like more super users for a while. And I explained just like in a day-to-day life, how I plan my day, how I travel, how I coordinate my meetings, and how do I think about my finances. Like, I've uploaded all my financial documents in a secure way, my taxes, my property, my assets, and I asked for tax planning, and I asked for like something that I would have to go to something, use it with the same lens you would, but there's so much power you can do to it, and it saved me a tremendous amount of money that way. But if you kind of use it in your daily life, then people will start getting curious about how do I use it in my day-to-day job. The second is you have to tell them they have to use it and make sure they do use it. And that's something I said, like, we track that data very, very aggressively. And for people that are not using it, we have talks with them. But you can't have talks with them too many times, and people understand that now. Because this is something that we've invested a lot of time and money and energy to kind of invest in. It's going to transform how our legal team is, and they have to be on board with this. And that means that if you're not on board, then it's going to be very difficult. I'm not saying it's meant to replace everybody, but there is an aspect of we give you a tool, we teach you how to use the tool, you should use the tool.
So I think if I could just summarize one of the most important parts here, what you're hearing is that strong leadership is also a demonstrated and hands-on leadership. When you have a GC and a CLO that isn't just mandating the use of tech and talking about the use of tech, but can share personal stories and experiences, lessons learned, silly stories about writing songs for their spouse or recipes or tax planning, it doesn't matter as long as they are getting that authentic story out to their department. And we see it all the time. We see mandates. And then we see a GC say, we better, we need to, but they don't touch the stuff. That is not a recipe for success. I'll just fast forward that right now. It has to be hands-on, all hands on deck, even in the smallest way. We don't need everybody to be experts. They don't need to be vibe coders. They don't need to be prompt engineers. They're not going to lose their job. Like all that FOMO-y craziness aside, they do have to do something. If you're working hand in hand with your GC and CLO, please gently ensure that they are also doing something. Help them actually try it. That goes a really long way. So I think that was a super important point. To make it also just hands-on real, the next question, let's go to my personal favorite topic and something nobody's talking about anywhere in this exhibit hall, contract automation. Nobody's heard of CLM. Nobody has any contracting problems, and that's not the number one use case of every single new AI platform out there. So, with that, what I want to know, in your organizations today, what are you using AI for in commercial contracting? What have you learned? What works and what doesn't? I'm going to start back to you, Steve, over there.
Wonderful.
Contracting and AI, take it away.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, small fintech, heavy contract usage. So we have our own templates of contracts for various services that we provide. Everything from a low-level NDA to terms and conditions for certain services that we're offering, be it broker-dealer services, be it investment advisor services, etc. We try our best to enforce our documents in terms of a sort of push-to-click acceptance. As you can imagine, small firm, low leverage, that doesn't always happen. Lots of documents are negotiated. And so we are using AI and assisting us to fast-track the usual, I guess, FAQs, you know, with the frequently asked changes, frequently asked questions that we get. And so we are effectively using our playbook with AI to help us quickly draft a response or a compromise in certain sections of certain agreements that we can live with from a risk perspective. But at the same time, we're still very much at the beginning of our journey here. We're not in the line of having a solution that not only does the red lines automatically, then stores the copies in a secure folder and has everything sort of itemized and controlled as well as maybe a bigger firm would do. So we are using it. We're right at the beginning of it to speed up our processing times, but we're not using AI as fully as I believe some of the bigger companies and teams are doing.
Yeah, same here. Excuse me. We're using Copilot right now, and there is a tool that's part of one of the AI vendors out here that we're using, but it's not the big. Oh, look at that name I had back there. That's one of the big ones. And I'll go ahead and tell you, they are part of the horse race. So once we do select one of the three big ones, we will be using more of them for our contracting. But that's what we are now.
So a starting stage. Go ahead.
So this is it's very dependent on the attorney himself or herself and how they're actually thinking about AI and how they adopt. For me, I create folders that upload historical contracts, and also I also upload the entire email chain history that I have with people. So I mentioned this tool that we have that actually can search all my emails about a certain topic. I know it's not the most efficient token usage right now, but I'm still testing out things. But I'll create PDFs of entire email chains, and then I'll upload that, and then I'll upload a historical contract, then I upload our contracts, and then I have it kind of work off of that as a basis. And I kind of use it as basically a first-year associate that's sitting with me, drafting, and then I'm making the decision things. Hello? Okay. We use the tools to kind of have that you can either have it automatically generate red lines for you, or you can have the principle about there's an attorney that uses as something that's on the desk as they're working on it and figuring it out. We're still trying to figure out what the best journey is for JLL. A lot of our attorneys are a little more conservative in how they review contracts. So we're finding that they want to just review a contract and kind of dabble in the AI back and forth. I'm trying to push for a more holistic kind of thing on it. But you can't push too hard on people that aren't ready for it yet. So part of it is just building the skill set. But for me, I definitely use it wholesale for all my things. I make it draft speaking notes when I have a negotiation. I look at other commercial terms from other markets, and I bring in a lot of intel that I normally wouldn't have available when I am just reviewing on paper itself. So for me, that I think I'm trying to get the different attorneys to get to that level, but I also recognize there's a journey to get there. And again, using just the commercial platforms, the enterprise ones versus the legal specific ones, the skills on some of these ones are pretty amazing. I don't know if anyone's seen CoWorks, legal options, they're quite powerful. They're only going to get better. And I think that's the real threat to the industry, to be honest.
Fascinating times for sure. We've got a couple of minutes left, and we're happy to go over, but we do have another important priority to tackle. The relationships with law firms. We've talked about this one before too. We're not going to talk about whether AI is going to kill the billable hour, but what we do want to talk about from a GC perspective again, and how Legal Ops is working with GCs in the context of law firms' usage of AI and your expectations. That is a hot topic, and there is no one right answer right now. I'd love to hear from you. Laura, what are you doing in terms of expectations with your law firms in AI?
So we ask our law firms to let us know if they're using AI. And to the extent they are using AI, we want to see it, we want to read it, we want to vet all of that stuff. We are in the process now getting a clause put into our billing guidelines about AI and AI usage. And for those who have used AI, we work with them one-on-one and approve their use of it. And others will deal on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so you want them to inform you. Is that a part of your billing guidelines?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we are seeing that this is now becoming the latest thing to be enforced in the billing guidelines. What are your expectations from that GC perspective, Steve or Chris?
Yeah, and we're actually seeing it as becoming in standard in the text that we get from law firms as well in their engagement letters, that they will actually proactively suggest that they will inform us if they use AI or get consent on a case-by-case basis. I think we see it from a small firm perspective as a very valuable tool, particularly in some of the heavy lifting where we may have e-discovery or other things where our systems need to be interrogated, and it would take a team, and I've had this previously in my role at NASDAQ, where we had 30 attorneys looking through documents for a certain situation, and it was horrifically expensive, as you can imagine. So AI using this and able to take the first cut, help us with this stuff, this is very valuable to a firm like ours that really does look at the legal spend dollar by dollar.
So we've heard a lot of approaches, of course. Common theme is, of course, everybody's experimenting and exploring. A lot of people here are interested in the tech selection itself. There are so many options. We all know them. I'm going to just channel the audience that some of the demos start to feel a little similar, with no offense to any of the providers, but they do start feeling a little bit hard to differentiate amongst. And how do you kind of go about it? So from just a legal ops leader, you're in the middle of a selection right now, Laura. How are you doing the demos, the personalized demos, the follow-ups? Are you using your own data? Give them tips.
So we'll use our own data. We'll be in a live environment. We had to go through the process as if we are onboarding them. I mean, IT was involved. They vetted everything. They're not coming in until they've been onboarded. And for those that we do not select, we have to take the time and offboard them. So it's a true process. And so we haven't seen the results yet to really, tell you how things are going with that, because Delta IT is still doing their thing. And that takes a lot of time. And we don't rush that process.
Okay, but a methodical approach to selection is key. I'm going to lead the witness. You have to have a methodical approach. You have to write down and compare apples to apples. Don't just go with the demo. The demo better be perfect. It better delight you and wow you. Next step is the personalized demo. Get your data in there somehow, some way. Chris, you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've gone through many of these demos, and we went through a huge process to decide our enterprise agreement for the entire company. Something to think about, if you look at like software coding, Cursor used to be the hottest company last year, and all my software developers wanted to use Cursor. Then came out Codex from ChatGPT, and then there's Claude Code. Each one of these leapfrogs each other every time they release a new one, and they get better and better. So the speed of deployment and the speed of one-upmanship is far faster than you've ever seen before. So one of the things that a lot of people forget about, and you should think about this, is what is the switching cost? So for our contracts, we don't do long multi-year contracts, right? We want the ability to kind of exit out, so you need to make sure those provisions are built out. When you use enterprise AI, your users actually retain a memory. It's no longer like just a wrapper where you kind of like something, it disappears after a while. So can you extract the memories and the insights and all those things? So I think you need to think about those things. So factors to think about, costs, switching costs are also important. How expensive are the different models they have? What kind of options are the ranges? Like, you don't need the most expensive model all the time for stuff. Does it allow you to switch between the expensive model and the cheap model? Then there's also just the general usability. Usability is one of the biggest factors that we had. I mean, all of them are quite good, but there are some that are better than others. So you have to listen to your employees really like using or are comfortable using, because again, once they're used to something, it's hard to switch them from something else.
All right, we're going to close with a rapid fire. Top tips for anybody right now trying to figure out what to do with AI next. We'll go down the line. Steve, hot tips.
I think one of the points I made earlier was that AI usage can differ depending on what your use cases are. And so even though we do have an enterprise license, for example, across the organization for usage in certain circumstances, we do also have specific providers providing bespoke solutions in certain areas like the legal team. So I think, don't think one size has to fit all. Look at the solutions out there, talk to people, find out what works. It may be that a solution is very affordable if you have a limited number of users, but you need it for one specific thing. And that can integrate into the rest of your usage policy.
If you have use cases, reach out to your IT team. Chances are they have a team that's working to build agents. You don't have to build them yourself, at least not at Delta. We're working with an IT team who is focused on agents, and they're looking at use cases for e-billing review. That takes my person hours to do, sometimes late night working on it. So look in-house. You don't have to do it yourself. Check with IT. They're interested in learning this AI stuff too, so you're not alone.
I want to leave a little positive note. There's a thing called Jevons paradox was, when the steam engine came out, people thought that people were not going to use coal and that the coal utilization would go down, that market would crash. But what ended up happening was more people started using coal because down, and then you had more people kind of adapting it. If you look at the modern world with radiology, an AI can read an X-ray much better than a human can. And that's been deployed almost every hospital globally. The number of radiologists has increased dramatically because more and more people are now getting X-rays for other things because it's cheaper, faster, easier to do so. So there's a company called Block.com that just made this announcement a week or two ago about laying off 40% of its staff because it's using AI. I thought that was quite tone deaf, and I think that's what a lot of our employees and people are scared about. But the reality is the usage of AI is going to amplify the different types of roles and the skills that you have. So I want people to have that like positive outlook that this is not doom and gloom for everyone. I mean, there is definitely going to be change, but you don't want to think about costs as just humans. And I think dehumanizing things is where things get really dangerous. And I think that on a positive note, when we're all transforming our legal teams, it's really thinking about how do you get it more efficient so that you can do more with this legal team? How do you advance the company further? And I think that's a really important thing to make sure you relay to your executives when you're talking about this. Yes, there's a cost savings discussion you have to have, but you have to talk about what else are you guys going to do once you have that bandwidth.
Okay, great points. So on close, connect with everybody here. Everybody's happy to share stories. That's the main focus of this event. Please reach out to us, stop by, ask questions. Thank you for your time, and we're here to hang around if anybody has any questions. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch.